Welcome to Whatif tutorials. In this tutorial I want to show you how to modify a made item's costs. There will be bill of materials, labour operations, and then I want to show you some made item reporting. Let's go to an item that already exists in the item master file. It's code TYO. This item is a made item and which is configured for sale. That is, its dimensions, which at standard are these, can be changed when this is used in a quote. So let's now go to the bill of materials for this item. You'll see there are two items currently in the bill of materials. What we want to do is to add a third item, and in particular we want to add a component, that is an item that has been made as a component, and now we're going to use it in this particular item. The item I want is called SCA38, so we'll use that item. It comes in here at $148 each. It's a made item, and we can enter the quantity here, or because this item is configured, we can put a formula which determines that quantity, not only for this particular standard size but for any dimensions when it's used in a quote. So let's click on edit. In here you see these are the dimensions, 2050, sorry, they're the minimum. The ones that have been selected are 4000 and 1500, and we want a formula which is going to use those dimensions in order to specify the quantity required of this component. You can enter in here any formula using these arithmetical and logical operators and brackets where necessary, much in the way you use them in Excel. So as a simple formula, we will say this is going to be driven by length divided by 500. Sorry, beg your pardon, length divided by 500. And that is a quantity of 8. Okay, so we'll say OK. Now this formula, we can reuse this formula in other items. So we might say just anything we like to identify the item, so that then becomes available for use in future. Now we've brought that 8 in here, and of course it's greyed out because there is a formula. If you wanted to get rid of the formula, you just delete it and enter the quantity in there. Put in some waste if required. Press OK. Add another item. No, we'll just go one. So here are the three items that now exist in this particular bill of materials. You'll notice there's two tabs in the bill of materials. This tab that we're looking at shows the items, the quantity used. You'll notice over here the bill quantity is 23, 15, 15, 8, 8, and the net usage is that. This is because the bill quantity makes 1. If this was a bill which made 2, then the net usage would be 23 divided by 2. So what we're after here is the cost per unit. So these are the costs per unit being produced. Waste, cost per unit of the component to give the cost per unit share in the total cost per unit. So it's now costing us 9431, and these are the three items that make up that cost. So we'll close this now. Let's have a look at the labour and overhead. Currently there's one operation in there, or one sequence. You'll notice that the sequence can consist of setup and or run to give total labour cost and overhead cost. We'll add another labour operation there. This time let's select another machine, this one here, and setup can be a standard setup or it can be a non-standard setup. If we try to go standard setup, we'll find that no standard setup operations exist for this machine, so we must use a non-standard. That is, any description we like, and of course the manning and the minutes will be specific to this particular product on this particular machine. So we might say we need 3 people for 45 minutes, and we're going to do 1 setup. It is possible, of course, to do more than 1 setup. If you are producing a large quantity, you might have to do, in effect, 2 setups, 1 at the start, 1 halfway through. Anyway, this is usually 1. Now let's get on to the run details. Similarly, there's no standard operation, so we'll go straight to this description here. And the manning, let's say instead of requiring 3, we only require 1 when it's running. And the run minutes can be expressed as run minutes per unit or units per hour. It's probably easier to think of it as units per hour that is going to be produced when running. And that will then give us the run minutes per unit of 0.12. Click OK. We create another operation? No. So now we have added a second operation to our initial operation, and we can now see the new labour cost per unit and the new overhead cost per unit close. Now this particular product has a new standard cost of 9988. Let's now have a look at made item cost reporting. Click Reports, Run Reports, Made Item. You'll notice that there are a number of reports. The first one is a current cost report. It looks like this. The current cost report gives you the bill of materials at the current level. That is the one we were just looking at for this particular code. These are the 3 items that exist, as we just saw, and likewise the labour operations that apply to this level only. There's no labour operations in here applying to any earlier components. This component cost here, SEA 38, its total cost per unit of 148 has labour and overhead built into it. So that 148 is material, labour and overhead to make the SEA 38, and it's being used in this product. And this labour and overhead here is purely the 2 operations required to combine those 3 components. Okay, so that gives us 9988165685. We'll close that. Let's have a look at another report now for made items. We just looked at the current one. Let's look at the exploded one. The exploded report looks at it slightly differently. It takes all of the materials back to the purchasing level. In other words, that item that we just referred to as the component item, SEA 38, doesn't appear here because it's the items used to make it appear here. So this materials cost is in fact the purchase materials cost, the total cost of purchase materials used not only to make this item but to make the component that's used in this item. Likewise, what we have down here is a summary of the labour by machine. It's not shown by sequence, it's just shown by machine, and the labour minutes required converted at the labour cost per minute, and the overhead cost converted also to give us our total overhead cost. So these costs in total, 9988, are the same as the previous one, but in this particular report is it's called the exploded cost report, and it's used to delve into the purchase materials required, as well as looking at the summary of labour and overhead required by machine. So let's close this one now. There is one more report that I want to show you for made items, and that is the indented cost report. So let's have a look at the indented cost report. This particular report shows each item used and its components, and it starts at the current level, and in that level there we are using these items. You'll notice here 111. The SEA38 is the component we added. And then the SEA38, of course, uses these items here. So this is called an indented cost report, and it, of course, comes up with the same numbers as the report we just did, both the exploded and the current cost. Finally, you can have a tree view of the indented cost report. You can look in terms of costs or quantities. Let's look in terms of costs. This report shows you at the top the full cost of the item, 9988. At this level it shows you the labour and overhead added at that level. It shows you then the three items used in that current level. That was the item we just added. And then if we open this, we see the items which make up that and the labour and overhead that was added at that level. So this gives you a bird's eye view, or an exploded view, of the costs of each of the components used in the item. That concludes this tutorial. Thank you very much.